Faisal. Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Faisal. Thank you, thank you. And today I would love to talk to you about an engineering paradox that I saw, where being a manager made me a better engineer. I used to think managers are just a waste of time, just meetings. They don't really add to me as an engineer, but the journey through being a manager really helped me be a better engineer, and I would love to share that journey with all of you. So how did that happen? Well, it first started that I was an engineer. I used to love all the new trends, all the buzzwords. I used to jump all the new tech and build all these new and exciting systems. And then I moved on to management, because that's how you progress your career, right? And I spent almost a decade, 9 years, doing management. First in Jordanian startups, then I moved over to big tech, Expedia and Meta, and all of these companies. And then I said, you know what, I'm bored. I want to find joy again. So what gives me joy? I want to be back, doing engineering stuff and writing code. And I started thinking, you know what, being an engineer, what was the latest trends when I moved out of engineering? People were talking about Docker and containers. So I said, okay, I want to learn about containers. So I went over and I joined Maersk, a shipping company. Apparently people were talking about different kinds of containers back then. This move was a scary move for me, I haven't written code professionally for almost a decade. My skills were rusty. And I remember the first PR I sent over when I joined Maersk. They were like, where are the specs? And this is not idiomatic Ruby, and all of these things. It was a scary change for me. But after moving over and joining Maersk and writing code, I noticed that my view of myself was actually I am doing much better than Faisal that was the engineer 9 years ago. I was approaching the problem space, the tech, working with the team and my partners in a very different way. And even my partners and my peers and my manager, everybody was telling me, oh my God, Faisal, you're being a good engineer here. So I was surprised. How did this happen? So I started introspecting and trying to look at my journey and understand how I got here. And through that, I came into 3 situations I faced through my journey. They did not change me, but they primed me for change. They opened up my mind, and they helped me start to question things and be open for change when it comes along. The first situation was I was visiting a friend of mine in a startup here in Jordan, At-Tibbi, and he was introducing me to his team. And when we got to the product manager, she was like, oh, Faisal, you're from Blue Kangaroo? Yeah, you guys seem like you're doing this amazing tech showroom. But what is it that you do? And my first reaction was like, look at the poor product manager, unable to grasp the amazing engineering that we're doing here. And I started explaining how we wrote our own C++ implementation of tail -f so that we can ship Nginx logs in real time from our web servers into our machine learning models. I talked about how we built a Kafka event bus, and where every other subsystem was publishing messages and nobody talked to the database directly. I talked about how we used Redis to do dynamic queries and generate personalized lists on the fly. And I talked about all of these things. She looked at me and said, oh, wow, that's nice. And the conversation moved over. But her reaction told me I did not answer her question. So that question stuck in my mind. And the question was, what is it that you do, Faisal? So that was something that stuck in my mind, and it stayed in the background for a long period of time. The second situation I faced was when I joined Expedia, and we had one of our engineers who wanted to move into management. So after talking with different folks, different bunch of folks, I prepared an email to announce this transition, and I said, hey everybody, please join me in celebrating and congratulating this person for making this move. Oh my God, this is such an amazing thing, and we wish him all the luck, and oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread, right? But the good thing is that when I'm doing a new thing for the first time, I usually seek second opinion. So before I send out that email, I went to my manager and I told him, hey, what do you think of this email? He read it, looked at it, and then said, that's a nice email, Faisal, please delete it. I was like, what? And he said, I asked him, what's the problem with this email? And he said, you're celebrating too much. This is just a lateral change. Somebody who is an engineer who's moving into management. This is not a promotion. There is no increase in salary. There is nothing. This is just a lateral move, and you're celebrating too much. And if you're celebrating when people move from engineering to management laterally, what does it say when people move from management to engineering laterally? Is that a step down? All right? He said, you're celebrating too much. So I ended up sending an email. This guy wants to do it. We need it. It makes sense. And the third thing was, when I joined Expedia, during my career here in the Jordanian ecosystem, my view of the career was that you start as a junior engineer, you progress to mid-level, you become a senior, and then you move into management. That was the path. There is no other path. But when I joined, maybe there were like very few companies that might offer you an architect position, but that was about it. And that architect position isn't really an IC role. Most of the time, you're further away from code. And so when I joined Expedia, I started seeing people that can be, beyond senior. There's a staff level engineer, there's a principal level engineer, there's distinguished level engineer. They even had, in Expedia, they had 2 people who were VP level. Their title was VP of engineering, but they were engineers. They had 0 reports. Nobody was reporting to them, but they were engineers at the VP level. And that really required me to re-examine my mental model and my value system. Because to me, growth in the engineering roles was all about growing your tech skills. As a junior engineer, you write silly code, and then you grow until you write really amazing code as a senior engineer. But if growing from junior to senior is better code, how do you grow beyond that? There is no betterer code, right? How do you grow beyond that? So I had, to re-examine my value model and how do you actually grow and what does it mean to grow from junior to senior before talking about beyond senior levels. And through working with, a bunch, I was really blessed to work with a bunch of people that were really smarter than me. They showed me a lot of different things. I came to understand that growing your seniority as an engineer is not about growing the tech. It's all about the behaviors that you showcase as you grow. So, for instance, ownership is key. And that means as a senior engineer, you need to own what you're doing. You need to own the product, you need to own the team, you need to own the success. As a senior engineer, you can't say, hey, I got the requirements, I wrote the code, it's out of my plate, not my problem anymore. You don't get to say that as a senior engineer. Coordination and alignment. As a senior engineer, you'll be working on complex problems, and any non-trivial problem requires you to coordinate with multiple partners, to work with multiple stakeholders, keep people informed, and make sure different dependencies and deadlines and conflicts are resolved and aligned and are moving in the right direction at the right time. Again, as a senior engineer, you can't say, hey, it's not my problem. You are responsible because you already own. We talked about ownership. You already own the product and the success and the team. So it is part of your job to figure out this coordination and the timelines and working with the partners. Adjacent opportunities. This was a concept that completely blew my mind. In that it's your product and your space, you're working in it, you have your manager, your product manager, everybody is there. But as an engineer, it's also part of my job to look at adjacent areas to my space and figure out how can I make opportunities to grow there, whether to take a product in a new direction or create a new space for an engineer I want to help them grow, or to help the business capitalize on a new opportunity by building certain tech. Hey, I can build this in this way, but if I change my system design a little bit, I could also capture that idea and that user flow and that opportunity. These adjacent opportunities are part of my responsibility as a senior engineer. And when I talk about senior here, I don't just mean like a directly senior engineer. I mean all levels that are senior, staff, principal, distinguished, all these levels, right? What else? Creating scope. One of the things that at Meta we used to say a lot is that the more senior you are, you need to create more scope than you consume. It's not your job just to deliver tasks. Part of your job is to create work for the rest of the team, for the more junior team. This graph of just consuming more tickets is not correct as you move in your career and you start growing in your space, your scope. You need to create scope for others. That means your backlog will never get empty. We need to get over that idea. The job is to create a lot of opportunities, and then we need to figure out which ones to pick. And that allows us to grow others. It's not just the manager's job to grow the team. The senior engineers are partners to the manager. Part of the job is to grow the engineers on the team. And that means challenging people, giving feedback, creating opportunities for them to excel, right? And that means as I create this new scope, I also hand it over to somebody. I know they need that opportunity. As a senior engineer, I create the space, I give it to somebody, I keep an eye on it, I own the success or the failure, but I also know that they are running it, and they will do it in a way that might not be compatible with what I want. And that is part of the job, how I can be accountable for things that are not driving directly. That's all about leading through others and landing impact through others. It's all about increasing your scope, increasing your sphere of influence by working through others, giving opportunities, helping them grow, and being accountable for all of this. It's part of the job. Just I want to reiterate this point because, coming from this ecosystem, it was surprising for me. Part of my job is growing people, making sure I create space for them as an engineer, not as a manager. I need to partner with the manager to create space, tailor it for the people on the team, hand it over to them while being accountable for it. That was such a mind-blowing idea for me. And it's the realization here was that it's not just about what I shipped. It's also about what I enabled. That meant part of it was enabling through tech, like enabling new business opportunities, or enabling through tech by building a tool that allows the engineers to work in a certain way, or enabling by allowing others and enabling people on the team to deliver value and to grow and to be part of the journey. It's so much more than just writing code and shipping stuff. As a senior engineer, the job is not just to ship stuff. That's a big part of the job, right? But it's more than that. It's about exhibiting all these leadership traits. And that's where I started to realize, oh, okay, that's why when I moved in my career all over and moved over from 9 years of being a manager, a leader, and people, leadership, and moved into being a software engineer, I was able to be successful because the job wasn't all about the tech. A huge part of the job was about the behaviors. That's how you grow your levels from one level to the next. It's not about the tech. Tech is part of it, but it's not only about the tech. It's about the behaviors that you start to acquire, that you start to exhibit, that allows you to level up from one level to the next. So at Meta, we used to say that a senior engineer and a manager share 90% of the job description in managing a team. They both need to worry about the growth of the team. They both need to worry about the team performance. They both need to worry about that the team is solving the most important problem. They both need to worry about prioritization and are we working on the things that matter the most. They both need to worry to take decisions, and decisions aren't just about, hey, should I use this tech or that tech? No. It's about also, should I build this or should I build that? What's the cost technically to build these? When do I pay back my tech debt? How do I refactor stuff because it's nice, or do I refactor stuff because it'll bring me value? These kinds of decisions need to be handled by the engineering leadership. And the leadership also includes the engineers. They both need to worry about ensuring the delivery of the team. The projects are being delivered at the right time. This automatically means the engineering manager and the senior engineer need to worry about the blockers, dependencies, misalignments, unreasonable expectations by the stakeholders. You need to, all of these skills that I used to spend in a manager, spending most of my day in a room having meetings, became such essential skills for me as I moved into senior leadership as an engineer. Right? The job was writing code. I was writing maybe 5 hours a day code, but the other 3 hours, I was holding one-to-ones with the team. I was sitting in with my product partners to understand what they want to do. I was talking with my manager and my skip manager to understand the overall vision for the department, for the organization, for the space and the company, and making sure that the team is aligned with that vision. I was talking to other senior leaders, engineers, leaders across the org to understand what's being built and how I can leverage them and what can I offer them, how can I increase my sphere of influence by offering some certain internal APIs and tools or something else. And all of that goes back into setting team direction. How do we set the direction for the team to deliver the biggest value that we care about? Because at the end of the day, we are, as leaders, we are accountable for what the team delivers. And I can't say, hey, I'm the senior engineer, just tell me what you want to do, give me the product manager, let them tell me what they want to do, I'll build it for them, and I'm out. It doesn't work that way. As a senior engineer, I need to be owning the product and the space. I need to be invested in it. I need to understand it fully. And that helped me, and part of it, what helped me is that through my journey, I also understood what leadership is. Leadership is all about modifying the behaviors of people around you. You inspire them, you motivate them, you give them a vision that they are excited about, you empower them. That's all about leadership. You are modifying the behavior of people around you. And what you will find out is that people, engineers, specifically engineers, that truly believe in what they are doing, engineers that feel autonomous, engineers that feel empowered to make decisions and to take risks and go for it, are going to be some of the best engineers you'll work with in your life. And they will be hyper productive, right? But on the flip side, all that autonomy will come with the engineers. Everybody is empowered to make decisions. They'll make their own decisions and they'll start to drift apart. So leadership, part of it is empowering people, giving them that autonomy, getting them excited and truly believing in what you're doing. And part of it is introducing process to bring them back together. And leadership is just this balancing act between process and autonomy. If I give you too much autonomy, things will become chaotic. If I introduce too much process, we kill productivity. And you need to find the balance between these things. And the balance changes on a daily rate. It's not you find the balance and that's it. You need to continuously investigate where the team is, where the product is. Certain stages, you need to go up on process. If I'm building a module that deals in financial stuff, people are hypersensitive about money for some reason. And if you're building something that is about finance or user privacy, as they say in London, you need to be big on process because a mistake is costly there. You need to make sure everybody understands what needs to be done, understand the job, understands the implications, and are pushing in the same direction. But sometimes when you are building, for instance, a new idea, or you want to venture into new space, or you want to capture a new segment and opportunity, you take down process and you increase autonomy. Run, I want to deliver quickly. I want to be first to market. I want to meet the deadline for that, exhibit or whatever it is. And we have an investor call in 1 week and we need to build this thing now. You don't want your engineers coming back, well, did you open up a Jira ticket for it? You just want to run and deliver. And that's the balance that we need to find every single day. That's leadership. Another thing about growing my career as an engineer is understanding that we are not all the same. there are archetypes. And that's not just about engineering, by the way. That's engineering, HR, finance, management, everything. And think of it this way. Look at two leaders, two managers that you really like. You will notice that they are not the same. They will have big differences. Some of us, like if I want to focus the conversation about engineering, you'll have engineers that are just coding machines. You give them a complex problem, and they'll go into a cave, and they'll emerge with 100,000 lines of code that solves these problems and captures the opportunity. They're really amazing at solving problems using tech. You have other engineers that are more evangelists. They can go out and sell that tech and ensure people are excited about it and they want to use it, whether internally, getting the entire team excited about this tech, or externally, if you're working, like, for instance, in a infrastructure as a service company or a platform as a service company. You want these evangelists that can go and get people excited to join you. You have the product hybrid engineers, people who truly understand product thinking, capturing, identifying segments and funnel progressions and other product stuff that I don't know, and then bring it back into the engineering part and making sure that you're hitting the right goals. You have the right hand or the sidekick archetype, which is usually attached to a leader. They understand what the leader wants, and then they say to the leader, oh, don't worry, I got this. You don't need to worry about this. This allows the leader to expand their sphere of influence, because now they don't need to worry about this, but it is running. And that archetype, right-hand archetype engineers, which is basically what were the VPs of engineering that were ICs that I met at Expedia. Those were attached to the president of the company. They understood what he cared about, and they will go and run 2 projects. Every project will take 3 years to finish, and they'll have 200 engineers working with them to deliver that. They understand the big problem, and then they go for it. And that got me asking, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Which domains am I best at? Which archetype am I? And once I know what archetype am I know where I'm going to be excelling, which opportunities are naturally suited for me, and which opportunities are not suited for me, which situations I need people to fill my blind spots. So for instance, if I'm a coding machine, I'll need to attach myself with a product hybrid that makes sure I'm writing these 100,000 millions lines of code, but I need to make sure I'm solving the right problem. So I need somebody to make sure that I'm working with that. So I'll attach myself to a product hybrid person. Or I'll attach myself to an evangelist. I wrote this 100,000 lines of code. I need people to use it. I didn't just do it for the sake of it. So you attach yourself to an evangelist. You work with your managers. And that's, it's such an amazing thing to figure out, which kind you are. How do you want to move from one type to the other types? It's such an introspective experience. It requires you to be a bit vulnerable, to go out, ask people, gather feedback. Hey, was that meeting really good? Did I get the idea across? Maybe I'm not an evangelist then. Or maybe I need to focus and get public speaking lessons or whatever it is to get my idea across in a better way. So I developed a kind of a checklist that I usually look at when I'm working, just to make sure that I'm on the right track. And that checklist was, what is the value of this opportunity that we're trying to capture? Or what is the value of this problem that we're trying to solve? Is it an important thing? If the product or management or leadership or somebody comes to me and says, hey, Faisal, we need you to deliver this. I ask, okay, what's the value of it? What does it add to the company? What does it add to our customers? As a tech leader, part of the job is to understand that, and then if it's not the most important thing, you push back and you say, yeah, but I have other important things to do, right? Another thing is understanding why this solution. So many times when I was earlier in my career, I'll think, hey, this is the problem. Okay, I'll use Redis, right? And I'll jump on it and I'll start building it. But I never evaluated any other solution for this problem. So now, one of the questions that I do ask myself is, why this solution? And if the answer is because I didn't think of anything else, that means I need to go back and evaluate what I'm doing and make sure that I'm looking at the problem space properly, that I evaluated multiple different ways of solving this problem. Another question that I continuously ask myself is, what is the cost of opportunity here, right? If I'm spending my time building this, then I'm not building something else. What is that thing that I am not building? And am I sure what I am building is the most valuable thing, right? Because the job is to make sure you are working and your team are working on the most important thing. You don't want to spend your time is so precious. You don't want to spend your time working on things that do not matter, working on the small things when there are bigger things that you need to focus on. In fact, this is a question will come up if you want to interview for big tech. This question will come up. Whether you're an IC or a manager, this question will come up. And if you don't have an answer to it, it means you don't know the value of what you're building. In one of the exercises is defining an anti-goal. You know, this is the goal I'm going for, and this is the goal that I am not going for. Right? I'm going, I have these two opportunities, and I'm going for this opportunity because it'll generate, I don't know, revenue, $1 million of revenue of ARR. I'm not going to build this opportunity because it reduces our server cost by 700,000. And getting 1 million in our ARR is more important than reducing our server cost by 700,000, right? But it's important to run this exercise. Why? Because you start to ask yourself questions. In the future, if somebody asks you, hey, why don't we do this? You immediately measure it to your anti-goal. Is this bigger than the anti-goal? I just said I'm not going to build that because it reduces cost by 700,000. I'm not doing that, right? Is this better? It's not, then I'm automatically dropping it. The anti-goal gives you this threshold, this line that helps you focus on things that are important, right? Opportunity cost is an idea that completely radicalized how I approach things. I stopped asking, okay, what are we building and why is it important? I started also asking questions, okay, what am I not doing to do that? If I'm in a roadmap meeting with leadership and we say we're going to do X, now I ask, okay, we're doing X, so what are we not doing in order to deliver X, right? And once you start internalizing that idea and pushing it, you'll easily find where are the things that you need to focus on. And once you start framing it in this structure, leadership will be compelled. And when they tell you, hey, we need you to build X because, I don't know, the manager in that company is our friend and we need to, and you tell them, okay, we're going to do that, but while doing that, we're not building this system that's going to generate 500,000 for you in ARR. They're going to say, hang on a minute, maybe we can push that to next quarter. The infinite next quarter that never comes. Another thing is, how do you define success and how do you measure it? So many times I used to build things and that's it. You just build it and they'll come, they'll use it, yes. Should we change the user flow? Should we change the experience? Should we introduce this feature? Yeah, it sounds nice. I think it sounds nice. Let's go build it. And then we spend 3 months building it. And is it used by anybody? I don't know. Does it add value to the company? Well, I don't know. Well, it sounded like an awesome feature, so we built it, right? But how do we define success? And we need to define success before we even start developing. For instance, one of the interview questions that I use, design a system for me, and then tell me the cost of running of this system, right? What was the infrastructure cost to run this system? A lot of times people say, oh, after I build it, I'll stress test it, and I'll use the AWS calculator or whatever it is, and I'll figure out the cost. But what if building this system took us 6 months, and then when you calculate the cost, we figure out it's too expensive to run? What's going to happen now? Right? We need to be able to define success and know how we're going to measure success before we even start, in the development phase. And one other question that I always ask myself is, how do I avert failure? And this requires me to think adversarially. This requires me to think of the bad case scenarios, to think there are enemies out to get me. You get, very, what's the word? Shakak. You start, Paranoid, thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. You need to become paranoid, How is it going to fail if an attacker steals personal information and block it? How is it going to fail if we are depending on a service and that service shuts down or they change their pricing model? How is it going to fail if market dynamics change? How is it going to fail if the overall tech strategy that we're building it does not meet, is met with market surprises? All of these things, you need to think about them and think how you're going to avert them. And on the failure point, this is a really interesting topic to me personally, because when sometimes companies here in Amman, sometimes they ask me to help them with recruiting for executive level in the engineering department, right? They want to hire a CTO, a head of engineering, a VP of engineering, that kind of level. And one question I always ask is, tell me about a time you failed, right? And I have statistics on this number. 95% of the times, I say, people tell me, Faisal, alhamdulillah, I've never failed. And I was like, okay, do you know how I'm going to process this? When somebody tells me, hey, I never failed, I'm going to believe you, okay? And then I'm going to ask, I'm going to follow up with questions. Why did you not fail? Maybe it's because you never got out of your comfort zone. So I ask questions. Hey, what's the most complex project that you worked on? Or, hey, tell me about something that was completely unfamiliar to you that you've worked on in the last year, right? I check, did you get out of your comfort zone or not? Or maybe this person is failing, but they're not aware that they are failing. So I start asking questions about self-awareness. Hey, tell me about some hard feedback you've heard from people. How do you learn about your own progress? How do you validate that the direction you're building is the right one as you are building? How do you make sure that your tech strategy is correct if you build like a project that will take you a year to deliver? At the 6-month point, how do you validate that you are still on the right track? Is this person, do they seek feedback? Do they internalize it? Do they think about it? These kinds of things are what I look for. Or sometimes, and I've seen this in interviews, is that they know that they failed. They've worked in a failed project. They are aware that it failed, but they don't own the failure. Well, yeah, I've done everything, but the product told us to build the right thing, right? And this is why this question is so important to me, because we're all going to fail. We are all going to fail at one point, And the thing about failure is that the higher you are, the bigger the impact of the failure. If a junior engineer fails on their task, okay, that task is delayed. It's usually like, a 2-day task? Now it's a 3-day task. That's fine. If a manager fails, the entire team is derailed. And that might mean we're missing roadmap items, we're missing, commitments with clients. If a CEO fails, the entire company could shut down. So if we're hiring at that level, at the executive tech leadership, a CTO, a VP of engineering, a head of engineering level, that failure is going to take a lot of people in the wrong direction. So it's important for me to understand that how do you detect that you're failing or not? What do you do when you do notice that there is failure? Do you blame shift? Do you panic? How do you approach it? How do you rebound? And how do you make sure you steer the ship back again to the right track? What do you learn from this experience to make sure it does not happen again? I'll give you this example, and these are real live interviews that I've held. One candidate is, hey, Faisal, candidate, tell me about one time you failed. Oh, alhamdulillah, Faisal, I've never failed, okay? Second candidate is, hey, tell me about one time you failed. Oh, I joined this company. They were working on a 4-year project to deliver a system. I joined them after the project started. At the end of year 3, we did a demo to our customers. They were extremely unhappy because what we built and what they want are completely not in the same line. The team was severely demoralized. That just opened up like a whole, I was just saliving. There are so many questions I can ask. Okay, whose fault is it? Well, the requirements were gathered before I started, but as lead, I should have made sure that the requirements were correct. And I should have touched base with our customers earlier, not at the end of year 3. Okay, the team was demoralized. How did you re-engage the team? I tried to tell them about the value of this project, how they did great work and how we want to take it back into success. And I managed to encourage them to work again and to continue pushing forward. Okay, what did you do? I spoke to the customers and we negotiated the scope of the project, and we discussed that there's going to be, we're going to be delivering 80% of the scope by the end of year 4. Okay, what did you learn moving forward? I set up quarterly meetings with the customers to make sure through this last year that we are delivering, we are still on the right track. And what happened at the end? We actually delivered more than the 80%, and we did some few fast follow-ups after the project was done to ensure it was delivered on time. Ask yourself, if you have these two candidates and you want to hire them for a CTO position in your company, which one would you pick, right? So, tech leadership, being a manager and being a senior engineer intersect a lot. They share a lot of responsibilities. They share a lot of the space and the scope. You need to worry and own the product. You need to worry and own the team and their success and their growth. You need to understand the domain you're in, and you need to push through all of this. That's how being a manager helped me be a better engineer. Thank you.